Hey, we really need to talk.
Yeah, yeah. Want me to tell you the truth? What you expect me to say? 'Cause if we keep it in truth.
On March 25, 1931, a fight broke out on a train traveling from Chattanooga to Memphis, Tennessee. This altercation during the ride consisted of a group of black teens and white men. When the white men were kicked off of the train, they reported that they were assaulted by a gang of blacks, and officials were notified ahead of their next stop in Paint Rock, Alabama. When they got to the stop, the 9 black males were taken to the Scottsboro jail. Common for the time during the Great Depression, many people would illegally ride freight trains in order to find jobs or for free travel, such as 2 white women, Ruby Bates and Victoria Price. These 2 women were afraid of facing charges for failure to purchase a train ticket, so they brought it upon themselves to accuse the soon-to-be known as Scottsboro Boys of rape. At the time of this event, all 9 of the boys were teenagers. The youngest, Leroy Wright, was only 13, and the oldest, Charlie Ween, only 19. On April 6, 1931, as the trials began, the boys were escorted to court by 118 armed Alabama guardsmen, while thousands of people surrounded them. They were represented by the same men as Bates and Pierce, Mila Moody, a decades-retired lawyer known to be forgetful, and Stephen Roddy, a real estate lawyer with no knowledge of Alabama law, who was seen incapacitated at times due to his drunk nature. The prosecutors decided the best way to go about the trials would be to do so in groups of 2 or 3. April 7, 1931, Clarence Norris and Charlie Weems were declared guilty and sentenced to death, resulting in applause from the courtroom.
Y'all's a bunch of bitches. Later, nerds.
April 8th, Haywood Peterson stood trial alone, only to be sentenced to death within 3 hours. April 9th, Olin Montgomery, Andy Wright, Eugene Williams, Willie Roberson, and Ollie Powell were all sentenced to death despite Roberson having syphilis and gonorrhea, making it impossible to have raped them. Later that same day, the last boy, Roy Wright, was sentenced to life in prison due to all but one juror wanting death for him as well. After several retrials, judges, sentences, in about a decade's time, a lot happened. Recalling the trial against Norris and Weems, 21-year-old Victoria Price was known to crack jokes on stand. However, 17-year-old Ruby Bates was a lot more timid. In 1932, she went on tour with the ILD and apologized for lying about being raped. In 1933, thousands of people marched in Washington to protest the injustices of these trials. After all this time, Roberson was also finally treated for his syphilis and gonorrhea. In 1936, during transportation to a new facility, 2 police officers threatened Ozzie Powell. In retaliation, he slashed one of their necks with a penknife, and then they removed him from the car and shot him in the head, causing permanent brain damage. However, he did live on. July 1937 was a big turnout for most of the boys. Willie Roberson, Olin Montgomery, Eugene Williams, and Leroy Wright's charges were all dropped. From the original trials, Norris and Weems were the first to receive the death penalty. Charles now has life, and Weems now had 105 years. In January 1944, they were both released on parole.
That's what I'm talking about!
Around this time, 5 of the boys changed their names and dropped off the face of the earth. July 1948, Haywood Patterson escaped jail, where he was free for 2 years until convicted again of manslaughter due to an incident in a bar. In 1952, he dies in prison of cancer. The youngest, Leroy Wright, made a name for himself outside of jail. He went on tour for the Scottsboro Defense Committee, served with the Army, and got married, only to come home one day in 1959 and find his wife in bed with another man, stabbing her to death and ending his life in a murder-suicide. At an unknown time, Willie Roberson died of an asthma attack, leaving Clarence Norris the last living Scottsboro boy. In 1979, he published a book named The Last of the Scottsboro Boys, an autobiography, before dying battling Alzheimer's in 1989 at the age of 76. In February 2010, the Scottsboro Boys Museum and Cultural Center officially opened in Alabama, and after 82 years, in 2013, all of the Scottsboro Boys were officially pardoned. The Scottsboro Boys consisted of how many people? What were the age ranges of the boys? What were the names of the two women who falsely accused the boys of rape? What year did the trial start? How many years did it take for all of them to be officially pardoned?